So your first car is such an important one. It's a really difficult decision to make.
Yeah, and like obviously you probably want something that represents who you are and is cool and funky and nice to drive, but realistically you've got to get something that's safe, reliable, affordable to maintain and possibly affordable to repair as well.
Yeah, that's right. Look, you're new to driving, so chances are something is going to happen.
Yeah, you're going to like scuff a wheel on a gutter or back into a street sign. It's not your fault that you're a terrible driver. You're new at driving. We're all terrible at things we're new at.
It happens, yeah. Yeah, we see people just making the wrong choice with their first car. It happens all the time.
And it puts often people in a really bad financial decision. So these are the cars that you should avoid at all costs. But first up, we're going to just filter out a whole bunch of cars, like genres and categories of cars first, and we'll get to the specific ones in a second.
Look, we'd be avoiding anything too old. Anything pre-2005 is going to have way less safety options, and also maintenance on those cars can be tough too.
Yeah, look, it's been proven time and time again that new drivers are the drivers that are at most risk of having an accident. And pre-2005, you might be missing out on really critical things like stability control, traction control, even extra airbags. In saying that, obviously you should never rely on these safety features. Ideally, you'll go and get some advanced driver training so you avoid having an accident in the first place. But still, when the worst happens, you want to know that you've kind of got that safety blanket to keep you safe and sound.
Plus, maintenance on older cars can be a challenge too.
Yep.
Look, everything on there is somewhat brittle. All the plastics and all the other cooling system issues are going to be less reliable. And on older cars too, parts in some cases are hard to get.
Exactly. Look, if you're into working on your car, that's your hobby, go bananas, fantastic. But the fact is the majority of people just want a car that's reliable, that they can get in, start, not have a concern about. And anything pre-05, there's less...
Bit of a risk.
Yeah, a bit of a risk. Also, fuel consumption. Not necessarily a hard fact here, but pre-2005, fuel consumption was nowhere near as much a priority as it is now, or for more recent cars. So you could end up spending more money on fuel costs with an older car as well. Okay, next up, we'd be avoiding anything that is English, French, or Italian. Not because they're bad cars at all, it's because of all the potential incidental costs that come with these countries of manufacture.
Firstly, cars like a 2018 Fiat 500, 2011 Jag XF, or 2017 Renault Clio or Peugeot 508 for $10,000 might seem like a bargain, but English, French and Italian cars tend to depreciate at ridiculous rates here in Australia, and that depreciation often doesn't even slow down.
Yeah, exactly. That means you could lose thousands and thousands of dollars over the few years that you own the car.
So the availability and cost of parts on those cars are way more challenging than something like a Mazda or a Toyota.
Yeah, because Corollas, Mazda 3s, Hyundai i30, they've just sold in much larger numbers than Fiat 500s.
Yeah, we're talking 10 times more sales.
Exactly right. So even when it comes to used parts, there's just more access to those parts on other brands over French, English and Italian stuff.
Yeah.
Again, nothing maybe inherently wrong with those cars from those countries. Yes, they're cool, but for a first car, just a little risky financially.
Next, look, avoid everything with a premium luxury badge, especially something like an SUV that's loaded with options. That is just more to go wrong.
Yeah, like a 2013 BMW X5 or an Audi Q7 or a Mercedes-Benz E-Class. They might look like bargains at $12,000, or a Range Rover or a Land Rover for under $20,000. It might look like the deal of the century, but just like the previous European offerings, depreciation hits hard with these things, and as does the cost of parts and just general upkeep.
Plus, quite often they're very complex vehicles, and in the Australian climate, sometimes they don't fare so well.
Then you've got the cost of consumables, brake pads, brake rotors, tyres, all those sorts of things. On premium brands, to have the car work at its premium best, you've got to spend big money on the consumable stuff. If it's your first car, don't spend that sort of money. Look, again, if you do love tinkering with your car, a 3 Series BMW or an Audi A4, it might be an option, but for the majority of people out there, you don't want to go tinkering with your car, so just avoid these brands.
Yeah, look, just remember, just because it's wearing a premium badge doesn't mean it's a better quality car.
Yeah, absolutely. Like something like a BMW or an Audi or even a Range Rover, they don't have any better build quality than the equivalent Hyundai, Kia or Mazda.
No, and quite often they're far worse.
Basically, just don't fall for all of the marketing and image bullshit.
In saying that, there is maybe one premium brand we would recommend.
Yeah, it's in our best first cars of 2024 video. The link is down there, and obviously go and watch it. If you're looking at a first car, it is a must-watch video.
Are you tired of streaky, squeaky wipers? Confused by wipers that are hard to buy and even harder to fit? Sick of paying extortionate prices for wipers? Well, introducing WiperTech. Purchase wipers from the leisure of your home and have them delivered straight to your door. Not only are they a piece of cake to fit, they fit perfectly, and you can now enjoy streak and squeak-free wipering all day. Plus, use our code and get 15% off your purchase.
And now we get into the cars that are just shit. Do not buy any of the following cars.
Absolutely. Look, we've tried to keep all of these cars to under $25,000. Some of them you can buy for under $5,000, but you shouldn't buy any of these at all.
You know what? Look, spending more than $25,000 on your first car is just ridiculous.
Absolutely. If you're a parent out there and you're looking at buying your children or child their first car and you're planning on spending more than $25,000, please don't do that, because what are you doing for that kid's idea of money and value in the car? What you're potentially doing by spending more than 25 grand on your kid's first car is turning them into a complete asshole. So don't do that.
Look, anyway, shit cars you need to avoid. Here are the worst.
Okay, first of all, Holden and Chevrolet Cruze and Captiva.
Terrible cars.
Terrible cars. Even when they're at their best, they're just bloody average. When they're at their worst, they can be a total nightmare. Let's go mechanical issues.
And the thing is, I was just going to say, people are drawn to them because they're usually very cheap.
Very
and the
cheap.
reason they're very cheap is because they are riddled with problems. They're just a nightmare to maintain and repair.
Also, not only are they cheap, they look like they have loads of features, because Holden and Chevrolet had to load them with heaps of features to make them somewhat attractive. Don't fall for it.
No.
Don't buy them.
They're rubbish.
Absolutely terrible. I'm just going to expand just specifically how bad they are. It's not only the immense amount of engine and transmission issues, we're talking exterior and interior trim issues, electronic issues, cases of them leaking, but then the water gets on the electronics
They
and
just fall
fries it.
apart.
Just
Yeah,
terrible.
terrible.
Just don't do it. Actually, now while we're on Holden and Chevrolet and General Motors, do not go near an Astra, or as many mechanics call them, a Disastra. Specifically, anything from 1998 to about 2009. These things are so bad. We know of wholesalers that, and even car yards, that won't take them as a trade-in because they are so bad.
And they're specifically that car, they are getting hard to get parts for too.
Exactly.
You can't fix them.
Yep, just don't. Again, another one that looks cheap on the used market, loaded with features. Don't make the mistake. Don't buy one. Also, Barina. Now look, these aren't necessarily a terrible car, and with absolutely fastidious maintenance, they can be okay. But the problem is, Holden doesn't exist anymore.
Right. Yeah, and things like ABS control modules, you can't buy them anymore, and that's a common problem with those as well.
Exactly. And in this kind of category of small city cars, there are just so many better options for the same sort of money. Don't buy Barina.
And then there's Holden's arch nemesis, Ford.
Yeah, first of all, don't buy an EcoSport. You know those shitty little SUV things? Don't buy one of them.
Now, that engine in that was actually voted Engine of the Year in some stupid category, and then proceeded to be one of the worst engines of all time. Just utter rubbish.
It's amazing. Actually, on that, you might look through Cars of the Year or Engine of the Year awards. They're all judged when the car's brand new. Give it 5 years or out of warranty, or 10 years old in this case, they can just turn to utter crap.
Yeah, terrible. While we're talking about Fords, look, avoid anything with the EcoSport or power shift transmission.
So with those, we're talking about the Fiesta, the Focus, and the EcoSport from about 2011 to 2018. Okay, this transmission is so bad, there's currently a $4 billion lawsuit against Ford regarding it. What is the go with this gearbox?
They're just a load of safety issues. One of the main problems was you'd pull out in traffic and accelerate, and it would just get all neutrals and wouldn't accelerate, and they just would stop and break down. And there's just a terrible transmission.
And you'll see this in the used market, especially with the Fiestas. They look really cheap, and you're like, oh, great safety features, really good tech. This is great. They're really cheap. Just don't.
More of an issue in Focus and Mondeo models.
Yeah, but just don't do it. Don't risk it.
Also, we'd be avoiding anything in the Ford lineup that's powered by a diesel engine.
Yeah, so we're talking about the Kuga or the Escape and the Mondeo. Just so many issues here.
Yeah.
And
Look,
they're expensive to repair.
Yeah, when they fail, the repair costs are astronomical.
Yeah, and again, you don't want that for a first car. It has to be economical. Okay, this one's going to upset a few people. Also with Ford, do not buy a Ranger with a 3.2 litre diesel engine.
God.
Let's expand on that. How bad is this?
Those things are a ticking bomb. Every single one of them is probably onto its second engine by now, or third, or just dead off the road because someone can't afford to put an engine in it.
Even another issue with these, the ones that are cheap have generally been driven by complete dickheads. And that's why they're selling them cheap, because it's been thrown through the shrubs or onto a sand dune or something and absolutely abused. It's just not worth the risk.
No, it will break your heart.
If you want to know what 4x4 dual cab to buy, go watch our best first cars of 2024 video. Now, while we're talking about huge American companies that have been making cars for what seems like centuries and still can't get it right, let's talk Chrysler here. For God's sake, do not buy a 300C.
No, not only are they terrible to look at, some basically downright embarrassing, they are very unreliable cars.
Can I just expand on the terrible to look at thing?
Yeah.
Hey, you're not a gangster. Driving a 300C is not intimidating anyone. It's not a scary looking car. No. It just looks sad.
You look silly.
Yeah, you look... I'm going to refrain. I'm getting politically incorrect. The build quality in these is just an absolute joke, not just mechanically, but interior trim, exterior trim.
Thankfully, you don't see many anymore.
No, funny that.
I wonder where they all went.
Yeah. Talk to any highway patrol cop or anyone that works in the police force about the dramas they had with their SRT 300Cs.
Yeah.
And
Terrible.
To give you an idea, we were going to do a full review of one recently, but the engine blew up, didn't it?
Can't believe that.
Weird. Don't buy a 300C. Also, the same goes for the horrendous siblings, the Dodge Nitro, and honestly, really any Dodge.
Yeah, look, the thing that stands out with a Dodge Nitro, their electrical system was just probably one of the worst modern car electrical systems ever done. That's terrible.
And also, even aside from all the mechanical issues and build quality issues, again, guys, depreciation.
Yeah,
like these plummet through value.
They're cheap, but there's a good reason for that.
Yeah, the depreciation is not going to stop. And you get to a point where the repair costs exceed the value of the car. So it's just a stupid financial decision to spend $5,000 or $6,000 repairing a car that is worth $3,000. Just don't buy one.
No.
I should mention as well, for the non-car nerds out there, Chrysler and Dodge fall under the same parent company. They're there with Jeep and Fiat and Alfa Romeo. Yeah, a bunch of brands that really, as a first car, you shouldn't be looking at buying one. If you've got money and you've had a few cars and you're an enthusiast and you're happy to sign up for that, great.
But still don't.
No, for the first car, no. I've got to throw a disclaimer in because we're going to get torn apart in the comments. Yes, all of those brands, they can be reliable. And yes, there are thousands of owners out there that have never had a problem. But for a first car, no.
Not recommended.
No. Actually, while we're on the subject of risky things, obviously being your first car, this might be one of your first big financial commitments. It is critical that you don't get ripped off with a bad finance package.
So to make sure you don't get ripped off, look, compare as many finance packages as you can. And the best way to do that is with the driver link below.
Yeah, applying with Driver is completely free. Doing so is going to have no impact on your credit score. It's a completely free process and you can get pre-approval in no time. Next
on the list is Mazda, but specifically the diesel models.
Yeah, we're talking, Mazda 3, Mazda 6, CX-5, CX-9, BT50. If it's a Mazda and it has a diesel engine, do not buy it.
Run. Don't walk.
Yep. It's weird too because the petrol engine Mazdas, generally fantastic.
Yeah, chalk and cheese. Petrol models are great.
Yeah.
Diesel models are not great. They're terrible.
What happens with them?
Turbos is a big one. They have this very complex compound turbo setup and they fail all the time and it's like a $4,000 part and the electronics fail, the sensors fail. They just... It's almost like they're made in a different bloody factory. They are just incredibly bad.
Don't buy a diesel Mazda. Simple. Okay, this next one. This one kills me because
Doesn't kill me.
Yeah, I know. I don't work on them. I personally love these cars. They're funky. They're so much fun to drive, but you should not buy one for a first car. And I know this from experience because I've had 3 friends buy these as their first car and it's cost all of them, all of the thousands. Anything mini. Like not just old school cool 60s minis, but the BMW.
Well, they're just a death trap, right?
Don't buy one of those. You'll kill yourself.
If you can afford one.
Yeah. Modern minis. Mini when it was owned by BMW. The Mini, you guys know, don't buy one.
Yeah.
I should mention, for those that don't know, BMW own Mini, but that means that you're paying a premium for parts, often labour.
Yeah.
And as you've told me a bunch of times, the way the vehicle's designed to get into the engine to fix a lot of common faults, it's just a nightmare.
That's right. I mean, the base model ones aren't too bad, but they do come with that BMW reliability. They're all leaking oil and they often have multiple problems, cooling system problems, and they rust out.
Exactly, and then also, and again, depreciation. There's a reason that those first and second gen minis are so cheap. It's because they're a bit shit. Okay, next up, it's unfortunately Nissan. And you'd think Japanese manufacturer should be good. Some of them can be. The ones you need to avoid is anything with a CVT or constantly variable transmission.
Yeah, they're just not good. Some of the ones that have been well maintained are okay, but they're a ticking time bomb in the early models. They're just terrible.
So we're talking Dualis and Qashqai, Pulsar, Juke, Micra, Tita, X-Trail, Murano. All of these things have plenty of reports of catastrophic transmission failures. Like, what are we looking at cost-wise to fix that?
5 to 10 grand in some cars. It's insane. And, you know, there used to be a time when you just get a second-hand transmission from your local wreckers or whatever, but you can't get them now.
Yeah.
They're hard to get and very expensive.
And again, we're back into that process. My mate Dan, he had a Tita, CVT, completely failed on it. So the car, I think he paid $6,000 or $7,000 for it. By the time it failed with the transmission, it was worth $4 or $5 grand. But then he's up for a $7,000 or $8,000 bill to fix the transmission and all the other ancillary issues that happened with it. What's the point of spending twice the money repairing it than what the car's even worth?
Yeah, just scrap.
Just don't buy. Avoid Nissans with a CVT.
You know what? The same thing can be said for Subaru.
Yeah, this is unfortunate. And again, I've had like friends in this position. We're talking Forester, XV Crosstrek, Outback, Impreza.
All the same transmissions, basically.
Yeah, mechanically really, really similar here. Subaru are seeming to do better with their CVTs with more recent models, but then you're talking over $25,000. That's not a first car purchase. These earlier ones, and again, $5,000 to $8,000 repair bills?
Yeah, in some cases, easily, yeah.
Also, Subaru don't have a great reputation for head gaskets.
That's right. And even if you have a good one that hasn't got a transmission issue or doesn't have a head gasket problem, the servicing costs on early Subarus are probably one of the highest overall costs of any Japanese car. Because every 100,000 Ks or every 112,000 Ks, you've got to do a timing belt on them. That's a $1,000 service too. And you know, what first car owner can really afford that? And just there on that, just be careful if you're looking at one, because a lot of them get sold around that time. They might seem cheap, but they're probably due for its first or more likely its second timing belt. Yeah,
they can be good. Again, it's for the enthusiasts. If you're into repairing it yourself and you've got some mechanical chops, go bananas. But otherwise, unfortunately,
steer clear.
Wouldn't
unless you get a manual. Manuals are way better, but can P-platers or learner drivers these days even drive manuals?
You should be able to.
Is that a thing?
We actually, we expand on this on our best first cars video. Go watch that. Okay, another manufacturer, but this one's going to send the old comments section into a storm of fire and brimstone.
It hurts because it's true.
It is. Volkswagen. Yeah. Don't buy a Volkswagen. Look, we know a Golf or a Polo, it seems to make sense, right? Because, they're small and safe and they're fun, they're practical, and it's German, so it should be reliable. Not the case.
No, not at all. Especially anything with a 1.4 TSI engine, they are just the worst.
Yeah, like we're talking oil leaks, electronic issues.
Yeah. Everything, basically. Yeah.
We've got reports of window switches failing, infotainment system issues. Again, the problem here is it's a European car. So the cost of parts and often labour is going to ask a premium.
Definitely. Same goes for their slightly larger, relatives, the Passat and the Skodas. All of them basically the same.
Yeah, again, for the non-car nerds out there, Volkswagen owns Skoda, Audi, Bentley, Lamborghini, I think Scania trucks, a bunch of different brands. So, a Skoda and a Volkswagen and an Audi of the same size are ostensibly the same car.
And you would think because it's such a widespread platform, they'd share a lot of parts. The parts might be cheaper or more reliable, but no, they're not.
No. And look, there are those examples out there, and if it has a fastidious maintenance history, they can be reliable, but the issue here again is, why do you run the risk in the first place? I don't think to drive or to live with they're dramatically better than any of the other competition. So why run the risk? Because if something goes wrong, it could be expensive.
The 2-litre petrol engines in all of those have chronic issues with water pumps, and that's a $1,000 turnaround. So you just basically avoid it.
Same goes for the Volkswagen Amarok and the Transporter. I know of people buying their first cars that want a full drive dual cab ute, and the Amarok, it reads so well in new car reviews, and new with a warranty, arguably one of the best full drive dual cab utes out there. But there are so many reports of catastrophic engine failures which take out transmissions, and you're looking at what? 20?
Tens of thousands in some cases. Often more than the car is worth.
Absolutely. And same with the Transporter. Yes, there are owners that have done all of the kilometres and have never had a problem. But then on the flip side, you've got these owners that have had all of the problems. I just don't think it's worth the risk.
Not at all.
Yeah. Now, look, we have made full review videos of so many of these cars listed. All the links are down below. And as we mentioned multiple times, to see the cars that you should buy, you must go and watch our best first cars of 2024 video.
So what do you guys think? And let us know, what was your first car? Drop it in the comments.
Yeah, give us some stories. I want to hear some horror stories about some old, EL Falcon or something. Oh, actually, what was your first car?
My first road car was an Escort, Ford Escort.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
cool. I had a Magna SE. Was it the TM? Was the first generation?
Yeah, you should have kept that. Very stylish, very
I think-
collectible.
I think the rust got to it initially. Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, let us know what your first car was, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, that's right. And I have no idea where
That's
we're going.
Yeah,
Keeping the yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Look, you're... Okay. Okay. Wait. Yeah. Sorry. Got to think of old nuns and dead cats. Yeah, yeah. Look. Oh, sorry. I need a minute.
Oh, wow.